Now, you may remember a while back I started a custom samurai Warhammer army. Unfortunately, I learned that at the time there were not enough kits and bits for me to flesh out the entire faction into a full army. But all that is about to change. You know what? I had so much fun doing that first Viking samurai. I am so pumped to be able to get back to this work. And that's because Games Workshop was kind enough to send me this. Today we are going to tear these Cathay limb from limb.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have.
And reforge them anew. We are going to build the cornerstone to any Warhammer army, the strong, potent infantry of the army. And we're going to paint one up and see how we can turn this into an entire custom faction. Now, on first inspection of all of the sprues for the Cathay army models, I found that their scale mail coats are simply amazing. There's so much character. They fit right into the theme of what I want to do. So I'm really going to use these as the foundational part for the infantry models. And these are traditional multi-part kits, which Games Workshop has by and large moved away from in recent years. But because it's the old world, we get that. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses because of the multi-part kit, because that means that the poses are very static. So we're gonna have to add some other bits from other kits to bring them to life. Also, why the hell do the legs seem so super short in these kits? In general, you want a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts waist and below to 1 part waist and above to have a good human ratio, and these guys are way off. So we're gonna have to fix that by adding some length to the legs. Now, I did already do one test model for this army, and I think he's a failure, and I want to show you why. See, I used Stormcast Eternal legs, and there's a couple things that are wrong here. One, they seem a bit too long, and their pose is a little bit too wide and set back. Because the coat is pretty static and straight up and down, we don't have a lot of room for movement in the legs that we choose to use. Also, his arms are a bit too short, and we're gonna have to deal with that a bit later. But we learned a lot from this test model. Now let's get it right. I think a good fit for the legs for this guy are the Slaves to Darkness models, because they give us that nice Vikings aesthetic, and they're roughly the same scale. They're smaller than the Stormcast Eternals, so I think they're gonna give us a better proportion. Now that we've found the right legs, we're gonna need to hack away at his butt and his thighs and anything that we can to have him slide into that torso. This will give us that correct 2-to-1 ratio, and it'll just show his knees and below, which is a lot different from the regular Cathay models that are pretty much only showing from the calf down. I'm going to stick with heads that seem very Viking-like. It really feels like it has a lot of personality to the army. One thing we've got to keep in mind, though, is they've got this neck guard on their armor, so we may have to chop down a little bit of their beards to make the head fit in to the torso. I'm really feeling good about how the legs and torso look together, and we've got to move on to our next difficult challenge, which is the arms. The way I see it, we've got two options. We either A, can find arms from a different kit entirely that are the right scale and roughly fit with our aesthetic, or B, we can actually take the Cathay arms that are in these boxes and we can extend them so they're a little bit longer at the shoulder. Because the armor and weapons that they're wielding fit so well to our theme, I'm going to try the Cathay arms first. The good news is we can use this opportunity to find the correct positioning so the arms feel natural and fit with the pose that our torso and legs have created. I like to drill in paper clips into the shoulder joints so I can move them around to get just the right pose that I want, and then stick them in place with blue tack and take a look at the model from all directions to see if it feels organic. Once I get it where I want it, I can come in with a putty and sculpt together the details of this empty section. I've become really fond of this Tamiya epoxy putty quick type for projects like this. Any small details that I need to sculpt, any gaps that I need to fill, this stuff is really pliable and it holds its shape well while still being sandable once it's fully cured. Once I get the general shape of the putty where I want it, I like to let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes to start to firm up. Then when I sculpt in the folds of the cloth or any other sharp details, it'll hold that shape and it's a lot easier to work with my sculpting tools. Then I just slap down my favorite texture paste on the base and our first custom infantry model is complete. And I am pretty excited about the potential for this model. It's that right amount of customization without being an entire overhaul for every single model. I didn't have to go through 20 kits to make it either, but it does feel unique. It does feel like it's part of my army instead of just the generic Cathay Legion. Quick aside here, and I hate to interrupt the video to do this, so I'll make it quick. Could you please subscribe to the channel if you aren't already? About 50% of my viewers are not subscribers, and it would mean the world to me if you could do that if you haven't yet. I don't want you to miss out on any of the future videos, and thank you so much for those of you that are already subscribed. Now it's time to paint this guy up, and I'm going to do some tweaks to the color scheme I started with the last model. It also is going to give me an opportunity to work on some efficiency in the painting of a full army. You know, over the last few years, I've realized that pure speeding just isn't very fun for me. I know some people love it, but I still want to find a way to knock out the time-consuming aspects of the painting process as quickly as I can. After we prime the model black and spray it white all over to ensure the next colors that go down are more vibrant, I base coat the entire model with beaten purple, followed by a burnt red from above, and then a bit of Mephiston red on just his head and shoulders. Now, usually I do this step with just a big old flat brush instead of the airbrush, but because I'm testing for painting a squad of infantry, for this army that would be 10 to 20 models, actually going through and doing these airbrush steps over all the unit is actually going to be quicker, so that's why I'm doing that today. I know I did that video about not liking airbrushes, so now that we have all of our colorful shadows established, and if you haven't seen this done before, trust me, it's going to be just fine. We get to move on to just going from mid-tone up to highlight quickly on each section of the model. Oh, we're also going to try something else fun today, and that is messing with fluorescent paints as mix-ins with our highlight tones as we highlight up each section of this model. I've been meaning to try this for a while now. And of course, fluo paints have very poor opacity, but mixing them in with a more opaque off-white color for our highlights really adds that punch of vibrancy, which is really useful because when you're highlighting up, we tend to lose saturation as we mix in more off-white colors into those highlights. Of course, when this desaturation of your highlights happens, you can always come back in with a glaze of a more saturated color to bring back the vibrancy, but that's a whole extra step. And if we're doing an entire squad of these infantry, we're not going to cut that step out. We are going to cut that step out. Why did I say we're not going to cut it out? We're going to cut that step out. We're going to do fluos instead. You'll notice I'm not fully base coating any surface here with any color of paint. I'm just starting with the mid-tone and covering most, but not all, of the red or purple below. It's crazy how much time just totally cutting out base coating really is, and having this universal, interesting shadow color really pulls the entire model together at the end. Even when painting a darker color like this scale mail, I keep the deepest recesses untouched with that purple or red. I'm just pulling the brush in this situation towards the tip of each scale, so it's darkest there. That way, when we use a very light gray to touch the top of each scale, we have a maximum contrast, dark right next to bright, and so the scales read as metallic. Now, there's a fair bit of finicky details on this model, and I'm not going to waste much time painting any one of them. What I am going to try to do is keep their colors more desaturated than the main pop colors that we're going to use for the rest of the model. The cloth, for instance, I'm just painting a desaturated green and highlighting it quickly with one pass of khaki. Because green and red are the main colors for our faction, desaturated versions of these tones on these smaller details work out really well. We are officially knee-deep in summer, and damn it, it is hot out there. But you know what's even hotter than the temps outside? That's right, it is Into the AM's 4th of July sale. Bet you didn't see that one coming. And this is no ordinary sale. It is one of the biggest they have ever done. It is store-wide, up to 60% off. In perfect timing, they have just come out with a lot of hot new designs that are a perfect fit for the summer vibe. Of course, I am partial to the Ninja exclusive shirt design, but let's be honest, my entire closet is filled with their tees, and even the ones that I bought years and years ago look as good as the day I bought them. Now, typically, I will use this sale each year to fill up my wardrobe for the entire year. Tees, flannels, hoodies, sweats, jeans, they got it all covered, and it's all on sale. But wait, there's more. If you use my code NINJON at checkout with the link below, you'll save an additional 10% off your entire order, even on top of the 4th of July sale. So make sure you check out that sale before it's over. For the red armor, we're really going to use the lazy man approach here and lean on the fact that it's already mostly red from our underlayment color. But because I'm saving that time, I'm going to take an extra step here and use a dark brown, something like a rhinox hide or an armor brown, to define where the plates meet. By doing this quick step, we actually don't need to work up the reds too much and go too bright too quickly, so they'll lean towards pink. Instead, I can just come in with a really bold red and quickly scratch out the volumes and edges so the red pops without ever having to base coat it at all. And over the course of painting an entire unit, this will save hours of base coating work. I can get to the most impactful edging steps almost immediately by mixing in just a bit of white, a little fluo orange, a little fluo yellow into that base red. We can get that punchy red highlight almost immediately. And I guess when it comes down to it, that's the whole point of this underlayment color experiment I've been doing over the last couple of years. It helps us quickly get to the parts of the paint job that are most fun and are most impactful. The less time we spend on steps that are boring or don't really make a big impact quickly, the better. We've all painted something where the last highlight step or few brush strokes made such a massive difference. So let's spend our time doing those steps and cut out as much of the rest as we possibly can. Next, I want to improve something from the paint scheme of our original Samurai that I think fell a little bit short, and that is the green accent color to go with our red. I felt it was a little too dark, a little bit too boring, and I want this to be punchy, so let's make it a strong jade this time instead. Again, most of my time here is just spent pushing up the highlights on this cloth so it really stands out as a vibrant jade. I add some ice yellow and some fluo yellow to my jade base tone to really make it that screaming teal tone. One thing I've learned about myself as a painter is that it's tough sometimes for me to restrain myself in painting these highlights and not go too big and too bold too quickly. What I found works is using thin lines and dots to build up these highlights in order to get right where you want without overdoing it too quickly. Oh look, it's more fun details to paint on the model. I'm just gonna mix whatever colors are on my palette to make a new warm color and just put a base coat and a single highlight on them. You ain't looking at these details anyway. Don't lie to me. Ain't nobody got time for boots. I will keep these color choices warm and fairly dark because I want that red armor to not get lost in other warm highlights, and our cold jade cloth should be the punchy cold highlight that stands out. The last vital detail for this army color scheme is the gold. And yes, I'm going to use non-metallic metal gold, but hold on a second, this is actually not going to take us very much time. And in fact, by doing these simple 3 steps, you're going to get pretty efficient at it, and you'll be able to do it soon as quickly as it took you to base coat it and slap a wash on it and re-highlight it with whatever shitty metallic paint you're using at home these days. I'm base coating the gold with Mornfang brown, and again, I'm following the same process as everything else on this model. I'm not worrying about hitting the deepest recesses or details. Leave those red or purple. From there, I go straight into Averland Sunset or some other light ochre paint. I'm not mixing this at all. I want one coat of this stuff to make a big jump in tone. I'm mostly hitting the edges and the upward facing surfaces that would catch more light. Do not overthink this step and leave a lot of that Mornfang brown still showing. The last step is pure ice yellow with a bit of our fluo yellow mixed in. This is just those brightest, shiniest tings of shiny color. What is that word I'm looking for? I couldn't think of the word light. These are the shiniest points of light that will really sell this material as metallic. By going through this quickly, never mixing paints, and just using 3 steps, you'll be able to turn your brain off to everything but the simple question, where is the light hitting? You'll surprise yourself how quickly you can get the hang of NMM by doing it this way. I paint the base just like I painted the rest of the model. I leave some of that red or purple still showing and just basically work in lines and scratches to give some texture of the stones. A single highlight reinforcing these lines and edges does help a lot. It doesn't need to be super bright, and from there I just slap an ochre paint on the ground and a brown wash pulls the entire base together. The goal today was to find the answer to 2 simple questions in regards to my Samurai Viking army in this test model. Number 1, are these new Cathay models flexible enough to create a unique yet on-theme foundation for my army? And number 2, can we figure out a way to paint these models quickly enough that I can knock out an entire force within a reasonable amount of time? For the first question, I think that these Cathay models, if used as a foundation and built upon, are a perfect foundation for this army. It feels like they knew this is the army that I wanted to make, and they just kind of helped me out by giving me the foundation for it. So, thanks GW. Hope other people like these too. But with my customization, I now have an added flexibility to create different poses, to work outside of the very strict and stiff looking Cathay models, and boost up their scale so they don't seem so squat and unintimidating. And GW has some pretty impressive other new models for these army that can give me a ton of ability to fully flesh out a full force with new kits and new bits. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this paper lantern, but I'm gonna do something with it. And as to the painting question, I think that this form of painting is really like my relaxing, fun go-to space. It took me about 3 hours to paint this test model, and if you are painting an entire horde army, yeah, that is way too much time. But if I'm just painting 10 of these and can knock them out fairly quickly and really be proud and happy with how they turned out, that's where I'm at with painting for armies these days, and I'm pumped to have a whole army that looks like this. And that really is one of the ancient Chinese secrets to miniature painting. Keep your spidey senses opening. What parts of painting do you enjoy? What style of painting do you have more fun with? If you go back to doing that more often, you'll go back to your hobby desk more often, and more stuff will get painted, and you'll have a good time doing it. Thank you for joining me on the restart of the Viking Samurai Army project. Now I am running hot for this faction, and I want to dig in and find other ways that we can add more heroes, more mounted units, more cool shit for this faction, because I really want to see this entirely brought to life. Which reminds me, I still don't have a name for my faction yet. Can you help me out? Give me a cool name. A massive thank you to those of you that support me, whether it's using my links of the gear that I use down below or joining me on the Ninja on Patreon. You got some great rewards out there as a thank you for supporting me. You can see my weekly behind the scenes videos. You can join our super exclusive Discord server and some other fun stuff as well. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta get back to the next video, which will be out before you know it. Just make sure that sometime between now and then, you find time in your day to slay the gray.